Hey everybody, so I wanted to bring up another reason that I'm more for this modular setup than even the new versions that EcoFlow has. I forget the name, Ocean or something, where it's more like a Powerwall and hardwired into your system. Well, today is a good example of why I am a fan of the modular setup and being able to take it with you, because we just got a storm alert for the area for a flood warning. You know, floods and batteries don't exactly mix. So I'm going to be preparing for it, and I'll show you here how I'm going to do that. But my biggest point being a flood warning is these are individual modules. I could totally take these apart and take them upstairs or evacuate with me if that was to be the case. But the point is that I could take the inverters and the power banks, right, all the batteries with me, or move them to higher ground or what have you, because of the the water intrusion right during a flood. So not something you could do with other types of power systems that are hardwired and fixed to the wall and just big sets of batteries that are immobile for one person to move. So I think it just reminds me why I like the module aspect of this, so that if something like that should happen, I could pick up and take this with me. All right, everybody, I wanted to show you how I'm going to use this system and prepare for a little notice I received for the area. So the Weather Service issued a potential flood warning, or a flood warning, for this area for the next 2 days. So made me think how I'm going to prepare for that with the system. I do have the storm setting on, as you can see, but that's only good 12 hours in advance. And I want to do a little bit better than that. So with that on, I want to power up the batteries, which are currently at 39%. So, and my solar is only bringing in a kilowatt right now because it's extremely weathery out there, right? We're completely covered in cloud and it's spotting rain, hence the flood warning, of course. So the first thing someone might do is telling the system to stop charging or to put the batteries like in standby mode, right? And as you can see right now, my grid is only pulling in 1 kilowatt to feed the house of only 1 kilowatt. That's all I'm using right now. But if I was to go in and change from my current self-powered mode, and I was to take self-powered mode off, you'll see everything start, you can hear them clicking, and watch my grid, right? My charging rate here goes to my AC input, which is currently 3 kc, 7 kilowatts to 7 kilowatts in the battery from the grid, right? I do not want to do that because my rates right now are higher, right? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So instead of that, I'm going to leave self-powered mode on so that I'm only charging from the grid, and then my grid goes back down to just what I'm using. So instead of that, I am going into the operating mode. Instead of self-powered, I'm setting the backup reserve because I don't want it to be self-powered yet. I want it to continually only charge instead of the normal 10 or 15% of my backup reserve where the battery will kick on and start using the battery for the house. I want to build up the battery cost effectively, right? Which is as simple as this. I raised the backup reserve level. Right now it's at 33%, which keeps me in self-powered mode. But because I'm at 33%, it has not kicked over the house to the batteries, right? It's pulling off the grid. So all of my solar is being captured and put in the batteries. I'm able to keep that going. Right now I'm at 40% by having this percentage follow, only a few percentages behind. But of course, I can only do that up to so far before it stops, and I'll have to turn the connection to the batteries off until I decide to charge off of the grid completely, which I would rather do after, I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock here. I'd have to double check to be able to charge it off the grid without overpaying for the electricity, right? So do it later in the evening, which should be fine to power up the batteries for the night and stay on grid and keep the batteries at full potential. So I could also go to time of use, right? As I'm sure everyone's going to be thinking, well, why don't I just set up time of use? That is an option, but it's just not the way I'm going to go. For right now, it's easier for me just to follow the backup reserve level, follow up with my battery charge, because I'm actively monitoring it, where I could automate it down here, yes. But more than that, it's also time for a generator test, which I was going to do this coming Sunday. So what better time than now, when I only need to come up another 50%, because I'm at 40 and I only charged to 90. So I'm going to come up to 90% on the batteries, which means I only have to run the generator for a little bit. And so I'm going to use the generator to do the test, do an oil change after that, and then charge the batteries to capacity and just stay on grid until this passes, in case I need that battery capacity, which is, of course, what this is for. So that will prep the batteries and the house for the forthcoming warning. And the house right now is only using 865 watts, right, as of now. That'll come up a little bit when everyone gets home, but when it's later in the evening, the electricity rates aren't terrible here. So totally worth it and doable, and it gets my generator test in. So I'll show you how I'm going to do all that. All right. Here I am at the main line for the gas feed on the generator. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on from the main gas line. And we'll go set the generator up. I'll show you how I do that here. And I keep my gas hose covered, right? So we'll take that off. I keep the inlet to the generator covered. Make that connection. Power switch to on. And what I found, I like to kind of purge it a little bit, actually, as I remember, of just bringing some gas in. I got my secondary connection I got to turn on. Sorry. My extra gas valve back there needs to be on. And then purge the line just a little bit so it'll start. Like that. Make my connection. And like that, we are ready to start it. We'll let the generator run for just a moment. All right, generator's running for just a moment here. Here's where we currently are in the state of things, and I'm going to switch the main over to the generator and watch it trigger. You can see the red light back there on the smart home panel 2. You see this changed here. The grid has been disconnected. It went to an X. Still pulling in the charge from the solar. The generator is changing pitch, so load is coming. Lots of clicking from the smart home panel 2. You can see the lights in the background going. They went yellow, and there's the load on the generator. We are charging off of the generator and powering the house. I would assume to see the app here change the generator symbol. take us out of self-powered mode. And see if our charging here changes. Well, the app out here isn't changing, but if I go into inverter 1, oh, it's pulling a charge. It's at almost 4K, so the face of the app doesn't seem to show it, so go look at your inverters directly. So inverter 1 is charging at 3.8. If I go back to inverter 2, it's charging at 3.5. Should be charged in about 2 hours. So here's what the front of the app looks like. It doesn't change the generator like the older version did. It says grid outage up there, but that's to be expected. So this is what I'm going to do for my flood warning. I'm going to charge my batteries. I'm going to stay on the grid since the house pulls so little right now. I'm going to leave those at a 90%. I'm going to charge it off the generator since it needed a generator test to begin with. And then I'm going to change the oil on it because it was due. And when it's all said and done, I'll turn the generator off. I'll put back the AC in the main panel again. And I will stay out of self-powered mode and stay on the grid and leave the batteries on battery backup standby. So yes, I could have done this off the grid, the charging with the 12-hour storm watch, but I needed the test anyway. And the generator is here to be used, so I want to give it its exercise. So that's how I'm preparing for the potential of an outage, and then we'll see what the sun does tomorrow. All right, want to give you a little update here what the inverters are currently doing. Pulling in 3.8K off the generator, and this one, inverter 2, is pulling the 3.5, and the house is being completely powered off the generator. So I'm on generator right now, and there's my switching in case anybody was curious. And the generator, I'll show you. There's my exhaust. Decently quiet outside. Might sound loud on the camera, but it's not terrible. And I would generally run it during the day for batteries at night, but emergency situations, nobody's going to care, right? All right, thank you. Here's another way to get your solar only. So I did the generator test and wanted just the solar to keep charging as you see it now. So the house is using a kilowatt coming off the grid. You see the solar up top. Up here is currently off, but I'm still charging the battery. The app, the new one here, I've noticed doesn't really show everything going on. So the other easy way to turn off the batteries from charging from the grid or wanting to do anything with the grid and just let solar come in and charge is just go to your inverters right here, and then your smart inlet box right here. Just go to that, and right here hit the off for each inverter at the top right. That'll turn off the port, while as you can see right here, still allowing on the completely separate ports of the solar in to keep charging. So that's what I'm going to finish off the day with, is just turning off the AC side to the smart home panel 2 and just let the inverters finish charging via solar this way. That way I'll get as much charge as I can before this evening when the rates drop and I actually go to charge on AC. When I do that, I'll turn these back on at the top right, and then I'll hit the charge now down here, and that'll get me up to charge for the evening, and I'm going to stay that way until the alert goes away and just keep the batteries on standby. But I wanted to add that little note. Thank you.